Welcome to NewsNation's Backscroll, where we look back at our major news coverage on the most important topics and personalities of our time.
New this morning, incoming News Nation host Chris Cuomo has released the latest episode of his podcast.
In this latest episode, it was out just moments ago, Cuomo talks with actor Alec Baldwin, who is challenging a report claiming he pulled the trigger of a gun on the Rust movie set, killing cinematographer Halyna Hutchins. We are now also learning that the shooting is now being called an accident.
Aaron Nolan joins us now with more on what Baldwin had to say. Good morning, Aaron.
Yeah, Mitch, good morning to you. It dropped about an hour ago on the YouTube channel of our Chris Cuomo and his podcast, The Chris Cuomo Project. He talked with Alec Baldwin, about the day that he shot and killed Halyna Hutchins. And this conversation was just hours after the FBI said there is no way the gun would have fired without someone pulling the trigger, something Baldwin has said he actually never did. But here's Chris asking Baldwin directly, what is the real story?
You say you never pulled the trigger, but the gun went off.
Right.
You do the ABC interview, and it was kind of left there. That will not make sense to people. If a bullet comes out of a gun, they say, well, then someone fired
You're
it.
familiar, but this did not come from me. This came from the DA's office themselves. You're familiar with what fanning a gun is. Have you heard of that phrase, fanning a gun?
Yes, but explain.
So if you pull the hammer back and you don't lock the hammer, if you pull the hammer back pretty far, in old Western movies, you'd see someone fan the hammer of the gun. The hammer didn't lock. You pulled it back to an extent where it would fire the bullet without you pulling the trigger, without you locking the hammer. The man who's the principal safety officer on the set of the film declared that the gun was safe when he handed it to me. The person who was the principal safety officer of the film declared in front of the entire assemblage, this is a cold gun. Now, why did he say that? If he didn't know, if he hadn't checked. The point is, all of us were told that everything was cool and you can relax and we're working with a gun that's safe to rehearse with. But he explained it to me effectively, that that's exactly what can happen if you pull a hammer back and let it go. If there's a live round. See, there's only one question to ask here. Who put a live round in the gun? That's it. There is no other question to ask.
The FBI's latest report has been sent to the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office, which is leading this investigation. Baldwin's lawyer has called the FBI's new findings misconstrued, adding the prop gun was in poor condition. Now, at the time of the shooting, Baldwin was practicing with that gun, as he just talked to Chris about. No one has been charged in the death of Hutchins or the injury to the movie's director, Joel Souza. The investigation continues. For more of that interview, of course, you can check out our website. Guys, back to you.
So I am joined right now by Dave Arenberg, state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida, and trial attorney Dante Mills. Gentlemen, I am made of questions. Dave, I will start with you. Good to see you. So let me ask you this. Dismissal, but dismissal with prejudice? Were you shocked by this?
Yes, it's rare that you get a case dismissed with prejudice. And as a sitting prosecutor, it's the last thing you ever want to have happen, because it means that you intentionally engage in misconduct. Not an accident, but something that you didn't want the other side to see. You tried to cover it up. It's a harsh punishment, but it deserves it in this case if that's what happened. By the way, one thing that has been said a couple times, was it a good Samaritan? Because that person who did turn over that information that led to this acquittal, he was a friend of Hannah Gutierrez Reed's father, and he didn't turn it over until after she was convicted.
Well, that's not entirely true, because what we learned during the course of the testimony today was that he had tried to come to the courthouse during the testimony during Hannah Gutierrez Reed's trial, tried to get the hold of the lead investigator. So apparently it was even, I believe, a month after the shooting that he might have been coming forward with this information. So it seemed that a while, but they didn't believe. And that's the point, right? And I just want to make sure of this. Even if this ammo had no relation to the case, was not in any way connected to the ammo whatsoever, it's the fact that it wasn't turned over to the defense, right? It's the prosecutor's job. You're a prosecutor. It's the prosecutor's job to turn over to the defense anything, right? It's not their job to determine what's exculpatory and what's not.
That's right. The prosecutors here said it's not relevant, it's not material. but it's not the prosecutor to determine that. It's the court. And that's where they screwed up. So, yes, this was a self-inflicted wound. Didn't have to happen.
Okay, I want to bring in Dante Mills now. Why, Dante, would prosecutors not turn this over? Were they hiding it? Did they not think it was relevant? Carrie Morrissey's an experienced attorney. Why would she not do it?
Jesse, this case is very shocking. And I'll tell you this, all of the hoopla that's around it is warranted because this is what should not happen. As a criminal defense attorney, a lot of people ask me, how can you do that? How can you defend sometimes people that may be guilty? And this is the exact reason why. I'm not defending an individual. My job is to defend the system, to make sure that the prosecutor is doing things the right way, not taking shortcuts, not cheating. When you talk about especially high-profile criminal defendants, a lot of times the prosecutor, they want the publicity from it. They want to be the person who brought down Alec Baldwin. And if something is put on their desk that may put that in jeopardy, for her not to turn that over, this is the correct result. So why would she do it? Because she believed it could have impact. Because I'm telling you, if she didn't think it would impact the case at all, then you put it in the regular file, which this was not included in. So I think the defense attorney did the right thing by bringing this up and making it a big deal because it is. We got to make sure the system is doing things the right way. And the judge handled this the right way by asking the right questions and ultimately saying that they either crossed the line or it was so close that this is the only possible outcome that's fair in this case.
Dave, the fact that this happened, Linda Johnson, we played the clip from her on Cuomo earlier, said she thought this case should be dismissed. What's your opinion on her coming out, doing an interview today on the day we find out she resigned? And B, does Carrie Morrissey, the special prosecutor in this case, face any kind of repercussions over this?
Possibly she could be subject to a bar complaint. She's an experienced criminal defense lawyer. She's been made a special prosecutor in this case by the local DA. So she knew what the rules are, and that's perhaps one reason why the judge said, no, this has to be intentional, not an honest mistake. As far as Linda Johnson, good for her for coming out and saying that. Also, it shows that the lead prosecutor here, Ms. Morrissey, may have been lying to the court again by saying the reason why my assistant prosecutor here resigned was because she didn't like the public hearing. That's not accurate. She resigned because she thought this case should go.
Mm-hmm. And Dante, let's talk next steps here, right? So this case was dismissed, well, let me rephrase. This charge was dismissed with prejudice, meaning the prosecutors cannot bring another involuntary manslaughter charge against Alec Baldwin. And by the way, this case had a lot of ups and downs. He was originally charged, enhancement charge, charges dropped, charges refiled. Do they come back and file a lesser charge, negligent use of a firearm, something like that? Or is this done? Is this over for Alec Baldwin?
It should be done. And the prosecutor's office should want this to be done so that they can move on and kind of allow their name to be cleared by whatever disciplinary action that may or may not be taken against a specific prosecutor.
I want to bring in Attorney Gloria Allred. She represents the family of Halyna Hutchins. Gloria, thank you for being with us tonight. I think the no apology thing really rubs a lot of people the wrong way, especially seeing him with this reality show now. But at the same time, there's this civil lawsuit. I mean, do you think it could be the lawyers just saying, you know, you're not allowed to reach out to them? Could that be what's going on here?
I don't know. I have no idea what his lawyers say. But what I say, as one of the lawyers for Halyna's mother, Olga, her father, Anatoly, and her sister, Svetlana, is, what about human decency? It's the right thing to do. It's the moral thing to do. Maybe he's not required by law to try to contact them, have a phone call with them, or FaceTime or anything else, just to say, I'm sorry that I was holding the gun that had a bullet in it that discharged and killed your daughter. Why does somebody have to be required by law to do that? It's the normal, decent thing to do that I think most people would do if that happened, whether or not it was an accident, whether or not it was reckless behavior, whether or not he followed gun protocols, which he didn't, for safety. He should do that. He knows that I represent them with other attorneys. All he had to do was have his attorneys contact me. I would have arranged the call, but never did that. Meanwhile, my clients are in Ukraine in a war zone, frequently having to interrupt calls with their attorneys, us, to run to a bomb shelter because a place is being bombed. And they have lost their beautiful, talented, loving daughter that they had a close relationship with. And all Alec Baldwin is doing is having his attorneys attack my clients. And, you know, it's just wrong. And to have to, you know, this reality show where, as you have mentioned, he shows the joy of being with his 7 children. Well, what about the pain that they're feeling at this time? He's never even said that he was responsible for Halyna's death. And they mentioned, okay, well, a son lost his mother, and that is very sorry. I mean, that is sad. And it really must be devastating to the child, who, by the way, is the grandchild of my clients. But what about the parents? Why he never mentions them, ever, on his show or in any other interviews in all those days? They are the parents, and they are still grieving every day. And, you know, what about this reality show? What's he doing on it? His wife is talking about now he has post-traumatic stress disorder from killing Halyna. Well, what about, how do you think the parents are feeling? They have
well, and he was reportedly suicidal. They say he was reportedly suicidal, that he shows remorse. I mean, do you think any of that is genuine?
I haven't heard any remorse said to the parents, to my clients. And look, we have a civil lawsuit that's been ongoing for several years. It's in New Mexico. And maybe he's doing this to try to make himself the real victim in this case for Alec's PTSD. He's got 7 children. He's a good father. Just to have, perhaps to have an impact on the jury pool so that they will like him and not think of him as being irresponsible. We don't know. But I can't say that that's not possible. And why does he not mention the parents at all? Why doesn't he reach out to them? So here's what we're going to do. A reality show is not something that's under oath. So we have now filed a notice this week with the court and served on his attorneys that we want to take his deposition, that's testimony under oath, in my office in New York. And we want to do it the Friday before Mother's Day. If they need to change it to another date, we'll be open to that. But it's time for him to testify under oath, tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help him God.
But joining us now is someone who knows this stuff well, all right? Criminal defense attorney John Day. He's from New Mexico. He knows many of the players here. He served as a special prosecutor in New Mexico. John, thanks very much for coming on. Appreciate it. Am I being unfair to the prosecutors here?
Yeah, you're not being unfair. I think this is boggling the minds of people who are watching this. This seems vindictive. It seems like the special prosecutor is trying to salvage her law license, maybe. There's no way in the world this judge is going to say, you know what? I made a mistake 2 months ago. Let's start this whole thing over again, and let's put Alec Baldwin back on trial. It's just not going to happen.
And what happens from here? So let's say the judge says just what you're saying, no. Can prosecutors then appeal that?
They can go up to the Court of Appeals. They can go up to the Supreme Court. I just think, it's become an embarrassment to New Mexico. This was game over back in July. The idea that the special prosecutor is now grasping at straws, trying to salvage her reputation, trying to go after Baldwin. I think you're right. If his name was Alex Smith, we wouldn't see any of this. But there seems to be something that's driving the special prosecutor to keep going and to file this motion asking the judge to reconsider. It's going to be denied. This judge is not going to say, I made a serious mistake. Let's start over.
And look, I think that this judge, in dismissing the case, had broader concerns about this case. The judge said it was because of this discovery violation, right? The fact that, they didn't turn over the stuff. But if this were a first-degree murder case, right? Intentional murder of someone else, there was a lot of evidence against the defendant. I'm guessing that the judge would not have thrown out the case. And again, you tell me if you think I'm wrong. I've got to believe that this judge, yes, had concerns about the prosecution's behavior, but B, also thought that this case was a bit of a reach from the beginning.
I think she saw, as it unfolded, I think you could see her, listening to the evidence, listening to the witnesses. I think she also had a history. She noted in her order, which I think is pretty bomb-proof. I think it's going to survive any sort of a pellet attack. But she also noted that there had been a pattern of discovery violations by the prosecution. This wasn't just a one-time thing. She did observe that the prosecution, in her mind, had been bending the rules, had been breaking the rules, and this was sort of the last straw. And if you read the motion that the special prosecutors filed, it's almost like they're admitting, Judge, we kind of got out-lawyered by Alec Baldwin's really canny, smart team of lawyers, and so you shouldn't buy into that.
Look, I don't care if you love or you hate Alec Baldwin. That is not the point here. The point is that this thing is over. It's done. And these prosecutors who have messed up this case, different prosecutors at different times for different reasons, just can't let go. John Day, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, more breaking news this afternoon. Investigators in Santa Fe, New Mexico, releasing a huge trove of video from the aftermath of the deadly movie set shooting involving Alec Baldwin. That shooting on the set of the film Rust. It led to the death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins. And now we're seeing the very first interaction between Baldwin and responding officers. NewsNation's Sloan Glass joins us live here in the newsroom. Sloan, we know you were still going through all of this new info, but what have we learned so far?
Well, Nicole, this latest video, this is everything from that day. It's the body cam footage from police when they arrived on the scene. It's interviews with witnesses. As you said, we're still going through the hours of the newly released videos and documents. But what we have seen so far shows the stress and the horror that came after the shooting. Here you see what should have happened. Baldwin practicing in the church set, pulling the gun. Now, the Santa Fe Police Department has said the files are all related to the Rust movie set investigation and include lapel dash camera footage from deputies and detectives, incident reports, crime scene photos, examination reports, witness interviews, set video, and staff photos collected throughout the course of this investigation. Now, Baldwin is speaking to police right after the shooting. You're going to hear him speak. They comment on the blood on his clothes.
Are you doing okay?
No, I'm not, actually.
Okay. Yeah. Crazy series of events. So we're requesting that you and Ms. Gutierrez conduct interviews back at the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office. Yeah, if an associate or...
What to do.
Okay.
You tell me what to do.
We would appreciate that, and then we'll...
When do you want me to do that?
We're going to probably go right now.
So can I take my car, that's my car, go back to the base camp, get rid of the wardrobe, get my clothes and stuff, and then I'll follow you?
Yes. I think... No, that's okay. I think we might, I don't know if this is suspected blood or real blood.
No, this is fake.
Fake, okay.
Baldwin has said he was told the gun was not loaded. He also told ABC's George Stephanopoulos that he did not pull the trigger and the gun must have misfired. Director Joe Souza was also injured that day. Here he is speaking to police.
We were rehearsing in the church set. Sorry, I'm trying.
It's okay, take
a very loud bang, and it felt like somebody kicked me in the shoulder, and then I was down on my ass, and then I looked over and see the cinematographer, Halyna Hutchins, with blood coming out of her back.
A report released last week by New Mexico Environment Department's Occupational Health and Safety Bureau found that the set of the movie willfully violated safety rules and demonstrated indifference to employee safety. Baldwin's attorney said that report exonerated his client and made it clear he believed the gun only held dummy rounds.
All right, Sloan Glass with that breaking news this afternoon. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. The armorer on the Rust movie set, Halyna Hutchins, returning to court after filing a motion for a new trial. She's already serving the 18-month sentence for involuntary manslaughter in the death of Halyna Hutchins. NewsNation's Caitlin Becker has been following this case from the very, very beginning. Caitlin, good morning. What is the defense arguing?
You know, Hannah, we can't talk about this case without talking about Alec Baldwin. And the defense is arguing that because Alec Baldwin's case, same exact crime, same exact accusations, same exact time he was facing, his case was dismissed because they said the prosecutors withheld evidence. for the same reason, they're basically saying, well, if it happened to him, it probably happened to us. So I deserve a new trial. So that is what they're arguing. We don't know whether or not she is going to get out and get this new trial, but the judge is willing to hear the arguments, which is happening in court this week. Now, in the meantime, Halyna Gutierrez Reed, who admitted that she was she's the armor on set. She admitted she loaded the gun that was handed to Alec Baldwin that ultimately fired, killing Halyna Hutchins, but said it wasn't her who brought the live rounds on set. Of course, she was convicted of that. So as far as the law is concerned, it is. But she not only has this motion to get a new trial on the docket this week, she also has an appeal that's separately working its way through court. And those are two different things. So if the motion is granted this week and she gets a completely second trial, which means we start from the very beginning and do this all again, that kind of makes the appeal moot.
You mentioned Alec Baldwin. We know his attorneys are filing a new request this week. What have you learned?
You know, prosecutors still want to go after Alec Baldwin in this case, and they filed a absurdly long request to retry him, to the point where the judge was just like, this is ridiculous. 52 pages is ridiculous. So from the Baldwin side, he's saying, you know, this was dismissed without prejudice, means you can't come after me again. So just sort of step back. So he's kind of raising his hands and saying this is ridiculous. But it does seem like prosecutors are still trying to hold him culpable for the death of Halyna Hutchins.
So a lot more to go. The story is not over yet.
Well, now to the latest on that deadly movie set tragedy. Today, industry peers mourning, sharing some emotional messages after, of course, last week's fatal on-set shooting involving actor Alec Baldwin. NewsNation's Nancy Liu is live from Los Angeles for us tonight. So, Nancy, what are those peers saying?
Well, Nicole, the entertainment world is still reeling from the controversial and tragic shooting death of Halyna Hutchins. As legal ramifications begin, the investigation continues in New Mexico as the industry mourns a rising star. A candlelight vigil to honor Halyna Hutchins drew more than 500 people to the International Cinematographers Guild in Burbank. Industry peers are mourning, but they're also angry.
That weapon should have never been in anybody's hands except for the armor, to showing the first AD, showing the director, before it was ever handed off to the actor.
How a loaded weapon got into the hands of Alec Baldwin is at the heart of the investigation, which appears focused on the production's 24-year-old armorer and 62-year-old assistant director. Entertainment lawyer Brian Sullivan predicts possible charges of criminally negligent homicide or reckless endangerment.
I don't see it rise because it doesn't appear that anybody had any violent intentions or any desires. It just seemed like a horrendous mistake that should have been caught was made.
There's been no public comment yet from the armorer or the assistant director, who was the one to hand the gun to Baldwin last Thursday, saying it was safe to use. The scene had Baldwin sitting in a church pew on set. He was rehearsing drawing the revolver and pointing it towards the camera when it went off. In a lengthy Facebook post, a gaffer working on Rust shared this photo and blamed Hutchins' death on negligence and unprofessionalism. Serge Svetnoy wrote in part, "I was holding her in my arms while she was dying. Her blood was on my hands." The tragedy was preceded by multiple complaints over work conditions and reportedly at least 2 other gun mishaps earlier this month.
I think this is a set that was clearly fraught with problems, and maybe they should have shut everything down Saturday morning when people walked off. But I don't know that the evidence yet shows it was egregiously unsafe to the point of like reckless disregard for human life to keep going.
Now, at this point, there are no charges in this case, and production of Rust is paused indefinitely. More details are expected later this week. The Santa Fe Sheriff's Department has scheduled a news conference for Wednesday. Nicole?
All right, we'll be looking for that. Nancy, thank you.
The case was dismissed, but the story here is far from over. Jurors in the Alec Baldwin manslaughter trial now speaking out about their experience of being involved in such a high-profile case and the moment they heard the bombshell testimony that would lead to the entire trial falling apart. Baldwin faced 18 months in prison for his role in the death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins, much of the case revolving around how live rounds made it onto set. and into the prop gun that would go on to kill the 42-year-old. NewsNation's Alex Capriello joining us live on this. And Alex, I know you spoke with one of the jurors earlier. What did they say?
Yeah, good evening to you, Natasha. I spoke to Martina Marquez, also known as juror number 1. She offered incredible insight and perspective into what it was like to sit in on such a dramatic and surprising trial in New Mexico earlier this month. From the beginning, she says she felt as if the prosecution's case against Baldwin really wasn't very strong. She looked at the body camera footage, for example, from the set of the movie Rust, and she saw missteps and mistakes from others and was skeptical from the beginning that Baldwin was the one to blame. She sees Rust armor Halyna Gutierrez-Reed as the one that's most at fault and says Alec Baldwin was only doing his job as an actor. When I pushed her about whether or not Baldwin was acting recklessly with the gun, she agreed that he certainly handled it poorly at times, but in the end, she says she feels as if Baldwin never should have been charged to begin with.
There's rules that you follow in a workplace, and it was obviously not followed. So I definitely think that charging Alec was a little bit pointless and a little bit crazy to even assume that he intentionally or he actually meant to do that with negligence. As far as pulling the trigger and actually meaning to shoot her, I definitely think the bullets played a strong role, and I know he didn't bring those on set.
Marquez told me she was open-minded from the beginning and wanted to ensure the justice system played out the way it should. But during the 3 days she heard testimony and evidence, she got the impression that she and her fellow jurors felt the same way, that there just wasn't enough evidence to convict Alec Baldwin.
All right, Alex Capriello, we appreciate it. And we know that Baldwin's case was dismissed when the defense argued the prosecution withheld evidence. When did Marquez realize that this criminal trial might be in jeopardy?
Yeah, that was a huge moment for everyone sitting inside that courtroom, including myself. And I learned the jury was also paying close attention, recognizing the importance of it all. Remember, the defense dropped the bombshell on the third day of the trial that bullets potentially tied to the Rust set were never entered into evidence for the defense to examine and, of course, build their case for Alec Baldwin. So on Friday, the courtroom watched with eager eyes the dramatic moment when the judge and the attorneys gathered around a table to examine that evidence and those bullets. When that new information was presented to the jury, Marquez says she recognized that it was a big deal. She says she even wrote it down in her notepad. That's when she says she came to a conclusion that this could dramatically throw off the course of this trial. Take a listen.
It didn't make any sense why the defense really had found out so late. So after hearing that and then seeing the prosecution and the defense argue, I knew that it was either going to last longer than the 8 days it was set for, or that it was going to need it to be dismissed.
Martinez praised the judge's decision to drop the case, saying it's crucial for both sides to follow the rules of the law in order to make sure a defendant gets that fair and impartial trial. Natasha?
Certainly. All right, Alex Capriello, appreciate you doing that interview. Thank you so much.
New today, this is breaking. All charges have been dropped against actor Alec Baldwin in connection to the deadly shooting on the set of Rust. Baldwin had been charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter after cinematographer Halyna Hutchins was shot and killed on the New Mexico set back in October 2021. NewsNation's Nancy Liu is live. So, Nancy, any word on why the DA decided to drop these charges?
Not yet, and this is quite a stunning development. So far, no public response yet from Alec Baldwin on any of his social media accounts, but his attorneys are expressing clear relief and elation in a statement telling NewsNation, "We are pleased with the decision to dismiss the case against Alec Baldwin, and we encourage a proper investigation into the facts and circumstances of this tragic accident." Baldwin had been charged with involuntary manslaughter in the shooting death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins in October of 2021. He was rehearsing a scene for the movie Rust when a prop gun went off on set in New Mexico, killing Hutchins and injuring director Joel Souza. Now, armorer Halyna Gutierrez-Reed is still facing charges linked to the death, and she has pleaded not guilty. Baldwin had contended all along that he did not know the gun was loaded with a live round. It remains unclear how live ammunition got on set, but those who've been following the case have questioned its handling from the get-go.
This case was botched from the beginning. The district attorney took 15 months to file charges. Then she filed an improper enhancement, one that was unconstitutionally applied. she lost there. She had multiple special prosecutors have to step down before they were disqualified.
Now, so far, prosecutors in New Mexico have not commented publicly about dropping the charges against Alec Baldwin. Incidentally, production on Rust resumed today in Montana, with Halyna Hutchins' husband now serving as executive producer on the production.
Alec Baldwin, meanwhile, will reportedly be participating in a documentary about the shooting on his set of the movie Rust. That shooting, of course, killed the movie's director of photography, Halyna Hutchins. And while Baldwin's charges have been dropped in this case, he is still being sued by Hutchins' family. So, Caitlin, we'll go back over to you with this. The Daily Mail first reporting this story. What are you hearing about this?
Well, Natasha, Daily Mail exclusively reported today that Baldwin has partnered with Oscar-nominated documentarian Rory Kennedy. She is the youngest daughter of Robert F. Kennedy and the niece of JFK. And she's already filming. We have photos up on the site right now that you can check out of Baldwin and an entire film crew filming him as he's leaving his house, as he heads to Montana, because what he's shooting for this doc is going to be the production kicking up again for Rust, which is now taking place in Montana. And he's getting a lot of pushback for this. It feels very exploitative.
Yeah, Nicole, I kind of have a two-pronged question, following up on what Caitlin just said. Why would Alec do this? Does he have an opportunity in this moment to try to move on and put this behind him? And does this prevent him from doing that in the public's eye? And then, if you can keep it in your mind, a two-pronged question on this. Could any information in this documentary end up backfiring? Could it be damaging to the lawsuit that remains?
Well, I'll take those in reverse order. Yes, these things could absolutely backfire. He could absolutely find himself back in front of a grand jury as the result of new information that could come out in a documentary about what happened on the day that the director was shot. So it's very risky. It doesn't make a lot of sense from a legal standpoint for him to be doing this. The first part of the question is, I can understand why it's compelling to tell this horrible story. It's emotional. It's tragic. Public does want to know about what happened in this circumstance, and he may be trying to fill that void. That said, the legal risk to doing this is huge and does seem, at least from this standpoint, to be very unadvisable.
Yeah, just about 5 seconds. I mean, Nicole, it seems like bottom line, if he were your client, you would say absolutely stay away, do not do this. I know you want to set the record straight, but do not.
Do not, right? From the lawyer standpoint, it's a very scary move from the lawyer's perspective.
Okay.